All right, Tommy Walsh, good morning to you. How you doing?
Good morning, lads.
So we had a very interesting conversation with Michael Verdi earlier on in the week where he said that Paddy Meyer is I mean, okay, it was just after it was just a day after the game, so I can see how the blood is up a little bit, and maybe he was exaggerating a bit. But Paddy Meyer was the strongest hurler he'd ever seen. He finished the sentence. We were like, "What? Really? No way!" So we had to ask: is Paddy Meyer in the top 5? Is he there yet?
Unfortunately, he didn't make my top 5, Ger. I went over the last 20 years. One of the guys that's on the list kind of finished up around that mark, so he barely squeezes in. I suppose the criteria that I went for, Ger, I went for naturally strong men. So I didn't go for guys that maybe spend 10 years in the gym, 5 years in the gym, maybe grew up in the new era of doing gym exercises maybe since you're 13, 14 years of age. I just went for strong, hardy men in this one.
That's, I think, exactly the criteria. So we were trying to come up with a poll who would, on Twitter before this started, who would be in the potential list. And the first one that I could think of, so Owen came up with The Rock straight away, just as, this iconic figure in hurling history, really. And then Mike Hoolihan was my immediate one that I went thinking back to, because I have a vague recollection of a story involving Mike wrestling a bullock and getting a kick, and I was like, well, any man who wrestles a bullock in the first place, he's worthy of inclusion on any list of any strong man.
Well, listen, what way do you want me to go through this?
Let's go 5 to 1.
Top 5 from 5 to 1.
Let's go 5 to 1. Let's start at 5.
So 5. So I suppose I did cheat a little bit as well, Jared. I sent it out to a few of my friends on WhatsApp groups. So they came back with maybe 20 to 30 guys.
Wow.
And I was able to pick my top 5 favourites then from that. So number 5, this guy, I first met him in 5th year in St. Kieran's College. He was a year ahead of me right throughout Kieran's. The only Kilkenny man on the list. I went to jostle him, and it was like hitting a JCB. It was the first time I ever felt physically shook after a kind of a tackle or a tangle. He played centre back beside me for many, many years, Brian Hogan.
Right.
Why did I pick him? Natural strength, huge man, but also mental strength. This guy, I always felt he was the godfather of our backline. We always felt safe beside this guy. Behind the scenes even, he always had your back. Like myself, JJ, John Tennyson, Paul Murphy, Jackie. Like, we always felt this was the guy that was minding it, because even if you weren't hurling great, he would build you up that you're the best player on the team. That's the way he was. He was kind of like Cody's quiet on-field general, but strength. Definitely one of the strongest lads I've come up across. Just even in the half back line, sometimes you'd be in a ruck with him, and you just feel the arms of him, just the sheer presence and strength of him. So this guy, I didn't want to have too many guys from one county, so I said I'd go kind of one from Kilkenny. A few lads that could have made that list: Noel Hickey, Michael Fenley, Jackie Turrell, but I just weighed it up, and I think Hogan as a complete kind of trumped them all.
All right, okay, that's off to a great start already. Who's number 4?
Number 4 then, current player. I don't think there can be many arguments with this guy. I came across him in the latter part of my career. Again, big, strong, natural, strong man. Under a high ball, impossible to catch it over. I'd say I caught the ball over him once in, it was kind of a pre-season. I'd say it was a Welsh Cup in Nolan Park, but I was lucky enough I was just standing beside him, so I was able to kind of maybe, and use a few techniques. but listen, for the rest of my career, he probably caught 30, 40 balls off me. Johnny Glynn.
Right.
So, Johnny, man mounted himself, and I heard a great story about him once. Whether it's true or not, I don't really know, but the manager at the time was trying to get him to eat pasta. Wouldn't eat it. Spuds. That's all he was going to eat. So that was just brilliant, I'm not sure is he from a farming background or anything like that, but I'd imagine he is.
So you're not willing to tell us what those techniques are while you're still hurling at club level. Is that the correct portrayal of exactly what's just happened there? You have to wait.
Look at any of the guys that are catching balls. It's just about getting the ball into your hand, isn't it?
There's a poetry to that. Who's number 3?
So number 3 on the list. Oh yes. I was delighted to hear you mention him just before it. Iron Mike himself, Mike Hoolihan from Limerick, makes it number 3 on my list. Why does he? I suppose I have such a fondness for that Limerick team. I loved them. They were my team, the team of the mid-90s. And they're huge, strong men on the team. You had Mike Nash full back. You had, Garrett Hegarty. I'd have a soft spot at the moment for Garrett Hegarty because I loved the way his father hurled. I used to watch him for years playing either midfield or centre-back for Limerick. Brilliant, inspirational hurler. Really, really strong man as well. Frankie Carroll was up half forward. Again, great player. You'd see Frankie, his hands would be kind of over his hurl, kind of hunched down. Next minute he puts 5 pints over the bar in a row. Just a great player. Kieran Carey, even still now, I met him last year there. Well, this year, a few weeks ago on a day here, still looks like a lad who could hurl. Fit man. But no, the Iron Mike himself was the strongest on that team. If you ever remember, we used in Tullerone, I used to have actually a Limerick jersey with Shaw's. The Shaw's was their sponsor at that time, and the collar was always up. You couldn't wear the Limerick jersey without the collar up, and that was because of Mike Hoolihan. So Mike Hoolihan makes it definitely number 3 in my list.
Yeah, here we have him there breaking the hurl over somebody. Okay, so number 2. Who's number 2 for you?
Yeah, number 2 is kind of a wild card that I had really. This guy came to prominence a couple of years ago in a county final where caused havoc, and it's still probably my favourite video to watch on YouTube.
We've got it going in the background here. It's got 150,000 views. It's got to get a few more after today, I'd say.
Yeah, Johnny Meyer from Loughrea, and a few reasons. It wasn't just that. I marked him in Tony Forrestal. I was corner back, and he scored a couple of points off me. He was tall kind of guy that time and really strong as a young under 14. I met him then up in Loughrea, say a couple of years ago. I was up at kind of a few young lads and that, and hands the size of shovels. Just really, he's even bigger, stronger in person than he was on the field. But Johnny Meyer had to make that list of strong men.
Did he make it? Did he play for Galway? I wasn't sure if he made it that far or.
Yeah, potentially it was probably maybe on and off, maybe panels or that. I'm not really sure of that, but could have been on maybe a panel here and there. But a huge club hurler now, won a couple of county finals. I'd say he was probably on the Galway All-Star team a couple of times. Yeah. If you talk to the Galway club people, I would imagine he was one of the great players in club hurling over the last 10 years. Well, he's probably same age as myself now, his late 30s or that, but say in his 20s, I'm sure he was the enforcer,
Yeah, absolutely. And did you mark him again ever as an adult? It was only under 14s.
No, I was afraid to mark him. 45. Anytime the manager said he wanted a challenge match against Loughrea, I said, no, we'll leave that till next year.
We've got the video rolling in the background. The video's hilarious. You've got to watch it to the very end because so they take ages to clear away the poor defender who got the hurl in the balls. He's stumbling off because he can't get up.
He didn't actually. I think he kind of only got it in the leg. Okay. That video makes it look a bit worse. He actually only got it on the leg. Yeah.
Okay. So it's at Carl Burke. And I think I have a feeling that he got booked in that same. So he got booked and he gets taken out. And then there's some defender after the penalty gets scored comes to try and bump off him, and he gets horsed out of it. And then somebody else just runs past him and he gets the swing of the boot. Okay. And it's like a child. It's a little kid.
I don't think he even got a yellow card.
I know, it's mad. Did he get suspended afterwards or anything? I don't know. I mean, was it just?
Yeah, I think he got a couple of months after.
Okay.
But he's a genuine guy, and this is kind of out of character, I think.
He can take a penalty as well, Tommy.
He can. Well, he was a brilliant hurler, absolutely. And if you look at that ball that came in for that, he caught it with 3 men hanging around him, And, who knows? Back then, it was a case of looking after yourself, Ger, and on. And, now you're laughing at me watching the video as opposed to the story. But, back then, you had to look after yourself as regards, he was probably off the ball when there was no one looking, probably lads digging him left, right and centre. So, I can understand it. It was a different era, it was a case of you look after yourself that time, but he was a strong man, yeah.
Yeah, okay, so who is number 1 on Tommy Walsh's list of hurling strongmen?
Yeah, so number 1, I don't think anyone else could make the number 1 on this list. He was basically the king of the strong men, as far as I'm concerned. Oh, and you mentioned him earlier on. There's only one man, The Rock from Cork. Just brilliant hurler as well. He was outstanding. If anyone, the size of him, you could think, right, put a small little nippy lad on him, and he'd turn him and this and that, but he was really fast as well. But took no prisoners. So Dermot O'Sullivan, the Rock.
Did you ever get a shoulder off him, Tommy?
What do you think? I was trying to get around him really more than that, but there was a few great shoulders. The time he hit the Limerick guy and then put the ball over the bar from probably 120 yards. There's also a famous scene where Kilkenny hurlers, he was full back coming out from the canal end, and about 4 Kilkenny lads tried to flatten him, and they had no luck. He just everyone just bounced off him. So yeah, and he's a very popular character as well in that Cork dressing room.
Yeah, and I think probably didn't get a lot of credit at the time for his hurling ability. The ability to make the whole crowd stand up and go completely mental just by hitting the ball was something that very few people could do. But every time the Rock would get the ball in the full back line, the whole crowd would be like, go on, hit it, and see what happens. Yeah. And then eventually he had to stop doing that because the Cork style changed. So it must have been quite frustrating for him, thinking, I could make the whole crowd understand that, that I look at the gift that I have in my hand and I have to give it away for a short hand pass to one of the cornerbacks.
He would have done well in our team, Ger. Get the ball and drive it as hard as you can.
He was a good hurler, though. That's the thing. It wasn't just strength, right?
No, absolutely. And a few of the big guys, probably when they're strong like that, they rarely get the credit for their speed is the first one. Like, I named out Brian Hogan, Noel Hickey. Incredibly fast men. They were really, really fast over 20, 30 yards. The Rock, incredibly fast. Like, you'd never see anyone getting away from the Rock. And then his hurling ability. Like, this guy won Meyer, the Beckel-Kenny in All Ireland. He won in 2 under-21s. So he was absolutely brilliant.
Who didn't make your list that was close to making the list?
There's loads of lads, really. Just trying to think off the top of my head. Gary Hannafy was one guy from Offaly. There was 3 Hannafy brothers. There was Rory, who would have been my age, and then there was
Darren.
Darren, and Gary. I suppose you could ask Dahi Regan, I suppose, about them, Burman, but Gary Hannafy, I would have come across him in the start of my career, and just huge man, probably the same size, but more rangy than maybe the likes of Johnny Glynn and that. Couple of other men, so from Kilkenny, as I mentioned, Michael Fenley. Trying to think now who was on that list.
Would you come up against Fenley in training and had to step in, because he was a brick shit house, really?
Yeah, he was again, it wasn't from the gym; it was just natural. And this guy, how fast people talk about Colin Fenley, that he was fastest man probably that I came across. But Michael, when they raced, Michael Fenley was faster over, say, longer, 30, 40 yards.
Right.
So what seems to happen, these strong guys, they seem to have power everywhere in their legs as well, and they're incredibly fast. So Michael Fenley was really, what the amazing thing with Fenley was, he mightn't train for 3 months, and he'd come back then and he'd be just there at match fitness. We did a drill the other night, we were off for a couple of weeks, we did a drill the other night in training, and it was I didn't train for 2 years. Your calf and after, the first ball. And Fenley was able to come back into inter-county Leinster finals, All-Ireland semi-finals, and just make it. Just incredible. If you look at...
Would you ever make the two Fenleys race just for crack and training? Is that how you know that one of them was faster over 30, 40 yards?
No, because we'd be afraid Michael would get injured. We'd wrap him in cotton wool. He was just there for match days. We used to roll him out. He used to see him the same amount we used to. So, no. But you know what? It would have been a great idea. It's a pity we didn't think of it.
We can do it. We can do it whenever Colin retires.
Do you think it's possible in modern hurling, Tommy, to create a team of hard men? Because that is one of the things that's been remarked upon about this Limerick team. They're noticeably big.
Yeah, you see, and we were only speaking about it last night. We were down in the hurling field, and we were saying there's such a difference. If you go back to a young fella, say an 18, 19, 20-year-old starting in the 90s or the early 2000s, there were only sliver of guys. They were, really kind of skinny and really kind of fit and fast, but just so skinny, not an ounce of muscle anywhere. And now look at the guys. I was at the under-17 games as part of the coverage with yourselves when you arrive early. And, they're like 23, 24-year-olds. So I think the way the game is gone, you have to be ready for that or you'll be blown out of it. Because I definitely would have noticed, starting off, hitting off the likes of a Charlie Carter. Say in my own club, I would have, as a 16-year-old, kind of helping out with numbers and training, coming across Bill Hennessy. It was like hitting Brian Hogan, as I described earlier. It was like hitting JCBs. So imagine now coming in after doing no weights and hitting off these guys, like, you'd be blown out of it. So, yeah, listen, I think a team of hard men, if you could pick 15 hard men that are great hurlers, wouldn't that be the perfect team? Like, I'm just thinking back to that great Cork team of the early 2000s. One of my favourite guys on that team, and he was a small guy, was Wayne Sherlock. Absolute brilliant guy, black rock guy, but just hard as nails, fast again, and wouldn't give in to anybody. And and you're right, if you could pick 15 hard men and ally that to it with hurling ability, you'd probably have an unbeatable team, really.
Were there any forwards on your list? Johnny Meyer is the only forward who made the list, was he?
Johnny Meyer.
Johnny Glynn.
Yeah, Johnny
Glynn, yeah.
So 2 forwards on that
That's
list.
not bad, yeah.
I had a team of 20. Just give me 1 second there now, and I have it. I'll tell you who exactly they are, all the lads.
Brian.
So
Go on, yeah.
John Carroll, there's the one. John Carroll from Tipperary. So he was very unlucky not to make the list. He's probably in the kind of Mike Hurling category, whether he was going to get in or not. And again, I was lucky enough to come across John Carroll. And another amazing not statistic, but amazing thing about John Carroll was he was incredibly fast as well for a big guy. Really was. And John Carroll won an All-Star as a wing back, and he ended up as a full forward. And I felt that if they had given him a few more years at wing back, he could have had even many more years at the top, because at wing back, I think you can it's more about reading the game and that. And John Carroll was another guy you explained about the rock. Like, he was able to inspire the crowd when he got the ball and drove it. John Carroll was the very same, and he was kind of a cult hero down in Tipperary, a Ross Gray man, and a good guy as well, and very much an entertainer as well on that Tipperary panel. And John Carroll is very unlucky, in fairness, not to make that list.
Who else have you got for us?
So that's really it. Then you're into the kind of guys that would have, grown up in the modern era. So guys that would have went to the gym from a young age. And 2 guys probably that would have made that team, if we were looking at everything, would have been Pádraig Maher and Jackie Turl.
Right.
So them guys were, hard men, and definitely, very, very committed and disciplined guys, and spent a lot of time off the field, getting themselves in good physical shape. And like, I remember Jackie, say, from secondary school, even before he went to the gym, like we used to be doing that time, you could do, a 12-minute run, and it's where you did a lap of the hurling field. And Jackie was always, even though he wouldn't be as fit as he is now, he was still always just a really strong runner, and a lad that wouldn't give in, mentally always so strong. So he was very unlucky not to make that list. I suppose if we had a different criteria, Pádraig Maher, like, in fairness to Michael Verney, he hit the nail on the head. He is one of the strongest men. There's no point in saying otherwise. Strongest men, sorry. And his ability to do it over, 2009, I suppose.
Yeah.
I first came across him as a 19-year-old, let's say he was. So that's 11 years now, or 12 years on the run. Just amazing for a guy to be able to stick to that level that he's at, like, still playing centre back. And now a different era, coming across guys that are doing the gym since 15, 16 years of age, and still we're saying that he's one of the strongest guys out there. And I think, we mentioned earlier, there's no point in being strong if you're not able to hurl, and he is just an ability to read the ball, and again was always one of my favourites.
Any of those Kilkenny forwards on your team? Because I get the impression that you couldn't really be a shrinking violet if you were going to be going up against you guys in training. If you're marking Brian Hogan in training every night, for example, you needed to be able to look after yourself. Yeah,
no, you did. The chef, like Shefflin, again, naturally strong guy, who never really, probably people wouldn't have seen the strength of this guy because he was that bit smaller, was Owen Larkin. Owen Larkin was a guy that we had never shift off the ball, and he was kind of like Bonner Maher, if you like, when he went on a solo run. I think it was a Christy Ring said when he was speaking about hurling one time, there's no point in going on a solo run if nothing comes out of it. There's no point in soloing into a dead end. When you solo, you either score or something comes off it. Otherwise, it's a waste of time. Well, Owen Larkin always reminded me of that guy, and you could never understand why, because he wasn't the biggest guy, or he wasn't the strongest guy to look at. But definitely when you came up against him, you'd never shift him. I suppose, a lot to do with strength, I suppose, as well, Ger, is your balance. If you have good balance, like, it does definitely add, I suppose, a lot to your, possibly a strong core in that. You'd never knock him off a ball. And Larkin could get down on that ball. And how many goals? I'd love if someone did a kind of a survey, or look back through his career and see how many goals was he a part of on that Kilkenny run? Because I'd say it was amazing, you know, whether it was scoring himself or an assist or even starting the whole process, because he got the ball and he was able to kind of move, and suddenly there was guys no one around him. And that was definitely, you know, he was definitely one of the strongest guys.
You mentioned Bonner there. We haven't spoken to you since the news broke about his cruciate injury. It's a huge loss to Tipperary, and he's one of those pieces that on its own it doesn't look like it's that important, but in the team and in the context of that Tipperary team, it's hugely important.
Yeah, it was, and you know, it's so sad for any hurler, like, you know, because we all have friends that have done it, and we all know that the pain, you know, the mind, I suppose, the mental strength that these guys have to have now to get back, especially at Bonner's age. Bonner is 29, but he must look at the guys that have done it, and he doesn't have to look too far. He only has to look over the road to Boris Lee, to Brendan Maher. Like, how inspirational was his comeback? Like, I met Brendan Maher, I think we were actually doing it was a Sunday show with Nathan, with yourselves, with Today FM, I think, on a Sunday morning before one of the All-Irelands. And Brendan Maher was up with me, and you know, he was just after doing the cruciate. Gee, my heart went out to him, like, and now look at him. He went through it and came back and has been man of the match in a couple of matches, was given a man-marking job in Tony Kelly. So hopefully Bonner Maher is able to look at that guy and say, listen, I know I'm 29, Brendan did it in a year, I come back, he's a disciplined guy, he's a fit guy, and I'll be back in a year and he'll still only be 30 years of age. So why is it so hurtful then for Tipperary as a team? Because it's his hurling again, Ger. Like, we look at his work rate, and again, you're talking about the rock, like, people are looking at his strength and maybe you forget how good he was as a hurler. Well, I often find the same case is the same with the Bonner Maher. People forget how good a hurler he is. This guy is the best guy, I think, in the game at the moment at rising the ball. So when he comes, he's able to glide in at full pelt, rise the ball, sliver in and out through a few guys, and off he goes. The second thing he's brilliant at is the solo run. No one will ever knock him off, and he has this sidestep that he's able to get around you. So Bonner Maher will be a big loss, not just for his work rate, for his ability to get the ball and go with it.
One last one here. It's from Issel Cody. She says, how you doing? Toughest man in hurling, Christy Ring, played a National League final with the jaw reportedly broken in the first minute against Tipperary. 2 cornerbacks subsequently placed on him for the game. Both left the field with head injuries while Christy played on.
Brilliant. Yeah. That's a fair comment, but I'd say, you know, I never saw him, but by reading about him and listening to what he had to say in different kind of articles and books, and that must have been incredibly strong. Now, this was, when we talk about Johnny Marr in a different era, Christy Ring played in a total different era. Like, he played in the era before Hell's Kitchen. Like, Hell's Kitchen was Tipperary, where you could clobber lads around the square just as long as you were minding the goalie, no problem at all. And Christy Ring was before this again. So, like, there's, you know, and if you ask Christy Ring, you know, this is again what he said in a book, was the hardest man he marked was the lad that didn't play the ball. And I'd say there was a lot of guys, you know, around in that day. But there was a good story that I read about Christy one day. Was, again, he was after receiving some harsh treatment. And he was down getting a bit of treatment off, you know, probably wasn't a physio, it was probably a local guy there that had a bit, some sort of a concoction built up in a bottle or something like that, and rubbing it into him. But he was down getting a bit of treatment one day anyway, whether it was with Cork or at Railway Cup, I'm not sure. But the ball was at the under end of the field anyway. So his marker anyway saw Christy down on the ground and decided to wander off. Christy was no threat, but Christy never took his eye off the ball. Next minute the ball came down, Christy jumped up, got the ball, put it in the net or over the bar, went back out to, I think it was Jimmy Ryle or something like that, and said, I bet you ain't never done that. So, you know, our Ring was he was different. Like, you know, if you listen to the stuff that Christy Ring said about hurling, he was in an encyclopedia about hurling and just knew the game, absolutely knew what it took. It took courage, it took bravery, and, you know, when they asked him, like, when he realised, you know, that he was able to make it as inter-county hurler, the first time he went in, you know, he was a bit nervous and wondering could he make it. Next minute he said, listen, you need bravery to win this ball. That's all you need, along with all, you'll be after learning 9 or 10 skills and practicing them every single day of the week, and then you know that you can make it. Courage along with the skills that you have learned. So yeah, Ring was just out on his own in that way, I'd say.
Tommy, great stuff this morning. Thanks a million, man.
Thanks, lads. Good luck. Bye-bye.
Some great thoughts there from Tommy Walsh and the hardest man in hurling.
Yeah, it's a good list. Great list. A lot of great people left out there, and I It couldn't be anybody but The Rock to top the list, could it?
No, that's fair enough.
The prototype hard man. Just at an interesting time as well. Just as you kind of mentioned, just as hurling was beginning to go in a different direction, a sort of more modern direction, if I can use that phrase. Not necessarily a better direction, but just a different direction.
Yeah, well, that team came along in '99 from nowhere, really, because it looked like Cork were entering another famine period, and then that group of under-21s come through and transformed Cork's fortunes up to the point where Kilkenny stopped them when the strikes happened, and that was the end of that, unfortunately. But officially, The Rock retired because he didn't want to wear a helmet. He was like, no, I'm not playing with the helmet. It was like, when they force helmets to come in, it's like, that's it, I'm done.
That's the hardest of the hard man sort of kind of stamped down on that one.
Well, you're ruining this game, you're making it soft. It's like, and he's like, yeah, okay, fair enough.
Maybe he was thinking about the fame that came from not wearing a helmet. That those moments wouldn't have been anywhere near as good if he had a helmet on. Like
no,
the point against Limerick.
Yeah, no, definitely. It was the last era of that potentially happening.